Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. I got to tell you, today's going to be a very special show. I'm really looking forward to talking with this gentleman and talking about what he's about and all the things that he does in his life. And basically, he's a hypnotherapist. Well, not basically. That's a lot of what he does. And he does all kinds of things. If you want to quit smoking, if you want to lose weight, if you want to do all the things that hypnotherapy does. But Craig Meriwether is my guest today. And, as long as hypnotherapy's been around, I was introduced to it way back in like 2002. It was kind of out there, and most people's introduction to hypnotherapy was a guy on stage who would make people do silly things and that kind of thing. But it's over the last 20 years, it really has evolved into a more of a mainstream science, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, thanks for inviting me to the show. I've been looking forward to this for a while now. And you're right. A lot of people get introduced through the entertainment side of things, comedy clubs, Las Vegas shows, and it's good fun. Unfortunately, I think it gives people the wrong idea. Even in your just kind of introduction, you say this hypnotist is making them do silly things, dance like Michael Jackson, sing like Elvis, whatever they're doing. Can you really make somebody do something if they're the ones volunteering to do it? Nobody's making anybody get up on a stage to do silly things. They buy a ticket to the show. They sit down on their seat. When the hypnotist comes out and say, "Hey, everybody, you're here for a great show. Let's have some fun. Who wants to volunteer and get up on stage and have a good time?" And a bunch of people raise their hands, jump up and down, wave their hands around. And he picks 10, 12 people, and they get up on stage, and he goes down the line. "What's your name? Where are you from? Do you want to have a great show and have a good time?" "Yes, I do." And they say yes like 7 times before this guy, makes them sing like Elvis or dance like Michael Jackson. And if you even watch those shows, like sometimes they put them up on YouTube. There's probably a bunch of them up on YouTube. At the very beginning, they do a big kind of trance state warm up to see if people can get in trance state, because there's maybe 100 people, 500 people watching, lights, maybe cameras. And when you're in the audience, kind of in the dark, that's one thing. When you're up on stage in front of 500 people and all their eyeballs are staring at you, that's a different thing. And people get nervous and they get stage fright. And that's not a great state, high anxiety to be able to relax into and go into a relaxed state of mind and body, to whether you're doing healing work or you're just having fun and want to do those kind of shows. So the hypnotist, he or she will excuse that person from the stage because they can't make them do anything they don't want to do. And they're so scared or frightened, stage fright, whatever, so nervous of being up there that they can't get into say. And he's looking for specifically, he's looking for, the muscles in the face are droopy, eyeballs are dancing around. Maybe he'll pick up their hand and drop it in their lap, see if their muscles are relaxed. And he's looking for specific signs to see that they can go in deep. If they cannot, they're off the stage. And so again, it's that thing of you can't make anybody do anything you don't want to do. But if you're up there, yeah, you're probably an exhibitionist. You're extrovert. You want a funny video to put on Instagram or TikTok or something. You want to look silly. You want to have fun. You want to look the fool in front of your friends just for a good time. And so guess what? You do. So what if you want to heal? What if you have something within the unconscious mind that talk therapy or some other modality can't reach, or you can't access because if you don't know what it is, you don't know what it is. But what's extraordinary about this work is your subconscious mind, that unconscious part of mind that's really running the show, running your digestive system, running your immune system, splitting cells, running your respiratory system. That subconscious mind that's keeping tabs on the habits of riding a bicycle, walking down the street, tying your shoes, driving a car, that part of mind knows what the problem is. It's trying to protect you from it. And it's sending out the warning signals that's of anxiety and anger and fear, trying to warn you that there's danger in external environment. It's just you may not know what that danger is. And that's kind of the problem. If you don't know what the danger is, how are you supposed to heal it? How are you supposed to make it right? How are you supposed to deal with it? Your subconscious mind knows exactly what it's trying to protect you from. Maybe there was a trauma back when you were a little kid. Maybe something happened in the home. Maybe something happened when you're a teenager or early on in your 20s. Maybe something happened last month. But more than likely, if you're not remembering the incident, maybe it happened when you were a kid. Your subconscious mind knows exactly what it's trying to protect you from. And, when somebody's in a building and somebody pulls a fire alarm, you get the sirens going off, you get the strobe lights going off, wanting to warn everybody that there's danger in your environment, your external environment. You need to get to safety now. Well, we also have a warning system, but instead of sirens, instead of lights, we have feeling states. So the feeling state of anxiety, the feeling state of anger, the feeling state of fear is a warning through your body that there's danger in external environment. This danger has been picked up by your subconscious mind. It wants to alert you that there's danger. That's great if you're out hiking and there's a rattlesnake in the trail, or you see in your peripheral vision a bear running at you. You've seen those YouTube videos of people skiing and a bear is chasing them or something. It keeps us, that feeling, that sense of fear keeps us from walking down that dark alley at midnight, even though it's a shortcut home. You want to keep to the lighted streets. You want to be where there's other people to keep yourself safe. So we have those feeling states to prevent us, or to warn us at least, that there's danger. But if you're not sure what it's warning you against, then how are you to heal that? How many years are you going to spend in talk therapy working on this? And what hypnotherapy does well, very well, therapeutic hypnosis, is, again, you know what the problem is. And more importantly, you know what the answer is, not consciously. And by relaxing the mind and body, you quiet down that conscious level of mind, you can access the subconscious. And we could talk for 3 hours about that whole aspect of mind and healing. But what's extraordinary about this work is that it's not that I'm going to fix you. It's not that hypnotherapy in and of itself is going to fix you. You're going to fix yourself. Because again, you know what the problem is deep in your unconscious. But more importantly, you know what to do about it. You know how to heal it. And that's why this work doesn't take, 80, 90, 100 sessions over 2 years talking about trying to get to the root issue. You know what the root issue is. Your subconscious has been trying to protect you from ever experiencing that hurt and pain for maybe decades. And so you will protect yourself. Even if you're unaware of what you're protecting yourself from, you'll protect yourself and you'll get that warning signal of fear, of anxiety. And if you're feeling that chronic anxiety for years, if not decades, this is a great methodology. This is a great modality to use to kind of get to the root of the issue pretty quickly.
Now, are they continuing to evolve the concept and the abilities of hypnotherapists to help people? Is it something that just kind of appears and is just like there, or is it something that science, and because it is scientifically based? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Freud was a hypnotherapist. Freud
Oh, I didn't know
was
that.
Sigmund Freud. Yeah, in the late 1800s, there was 2 schools of hypnotherapy in Vienna. He was studying at one of them. He wasn't so great at the inductions. It took a while to get people induced into what they considered the appropriate hypnotic trance state. He wanted another way of accessing mind and for healing. And so he created sort of the Freudian system, which actually puts a lot of control in the therapist's hands and out of the patient's hands. So it was more of the therapist is going to tell you what's wrong with you, and the therapist is going to advise you on how to heal. And, if that didn't work, hey, prescribe some cocaine. that will make you feel better right away. And
Oh
he
boy.
probably he probably OD'd at least one of his patients. One of his patients died of cocaine overdose that he had prescribed. Now, whether it was an accident or took too much or took the exact amount Freud prescribed is up for debate. But in terms of the scientific validity of this, yeah, this has been going on for 100 years. What really sent it into a more accepted form of healing was Milton Erickson. And Milton Erickson back in the 60s and 70s really gave this modality a lot of legitimacy. In fact, the healing modality of neuro-linguistic programming is heavily based on his work. Virginia Satie, who's the guy who developed Gestalt therapy, lots of people, but Milton Erickson was one of the foundational people they were studying, Richard Bandler and John Grinder. One was a mathematician, the other was a linguist. And these two guys, hearing that Milton Erickson and some of these others were using language, tone, spacing of words, the way the sentence was constructed to achieve extraordinary healing, they decided to study this. Like one may study, music, but instead of notes from a piano or a violin, they're studying the words from a therapist. How is that sentence constructed? Just like Mozart, how did he construct this phrase of music to get that emotion? So they were studying the musicality, if you will, of Milton Erickson's therapeutic language. And that heavily influenced neurolinguistic programming. So this work has, and with a lot of the research that's been going on since we had access to MRIs and SPECT scans and things, we can actually watch the brain in real time, whether it's learning something or it's being trauma is being remembered or healing is happening. We can watch the brain and we can see what methodologies work. And so there's a lot of research that's been coming out over the last 40, 50 years, specifically about hypnotherapy, that shows it's an extraordinary modality for healing. So
Now I'm curious because the brain is an organism that we don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we know really enough about the brain yet.
Yeah.
On how it works. Typically, I had heard, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but typically the average person uses about 10% of their brain, maybe a little bit more. I don't know. Has that changed?
Well, that's a misnomer. The quote was actually, we understand 10% of the brain.
Oh, okay.
And that was back in the 1950s. But you are correct in that a lot of this research about the brain is relatively new. All we knew about the brain is what we could gain from sociological research and autopsies. But it was really with the advent of MRIs and SPECT scans and a lot of these other technologies to watch a live brain in real time that we really began to understand how the brain connects. I mean, you can go on YouTube now and watch neurons connecting and then pruning away from each other as people heal, as people get rid of bad habits like quitting smoking or some other bad habit. You can watch the neurons prune away. And so we have all this extraordinary research, but it's really within the last 40, 50 years that we've been able to really understand the brain.
Now, I wanted to ask you specifically about smoking real quick because
Okay.
I are one and have in the past, and but for people who've never smoked, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's like because every pleasurable thing you do, when you have a good meal, you want a cigarette. You have a stressful situation, you want to have a cigarette to calm down. You have a pleasant situation, you want a cigarette because you feel good. All sorts of triggers, having a cup of coffee, having good sex, not that I would know about that, but anything like that you have, it's a pleasurable thing. And how in the world does hypnosis stop you from wanting those triggers, as they
Yeah.
say, when because you get triggered in all kinds of situations, and that's why you'll smoke 15 or 20 or 40 or 60 cigarettes a day because you're
Yeah.
triggered so much. How does that stop you from being triggered?
Yeah. Well, you are not a smoker. You weren't born a smoker. Yeah, maybe you started early on. Maybe you're 11 or 12 years old, as some kids do, but you are not a smoker. So you've kind of hypnotized yourself into believing that you are. Sorry about that. My dad's phone's ringing.
That's okay.
Um, let's see if I was supposed to maybe get that turned off. I think he's taking a nap. And so you are in a trance state. And the trance state is that of a smoker. You have basically hypnotized yourself into believing that you need a cigarette after a good meal or after a stressful day. So a lot of this work, whether it's about smoking, about some other issue, isn't so much hypnotizing you to be somebody else. It's more of dehypnotizing you from the person you think you are. And you have this habit that you have created generally. And what's interesting about smoking, you generally do not meet people who started smoking after the age of 25.
Correct.
They all start smoking somewhere between 10 years old and 25 years old.
Yeah.
That socialization there. And even if you do meet somebody who's like, oh, I started smoking when I was 35, it's like, well, did you ever smoke when you were a teenager? Oh, yeah, a little bit. Sometimes I'd grab a cigarette at a party or something. And okay, and then what happened at 35? Did you get divorced? Are you going through bankruptcy? Something extraordinarily stressful happened. And the one thing they realize is, you know what made me feel better when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, is smoking a cigarette. And so it, again, moves them back into a trance state. We're all in some sort of trance state. Right now, I'm in a trance state of being a hypnotherapist, being interviewed on the show. Later on, I'll be in the trance state of driving my dad maybe to the grocery store or maybe out to go, have dinner or something. We all have these trance states, of driving down the street, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves at our parking spot at work or in the driveway at home. We don't remember the last 8 blocks. We're always putting ourselves in these trance states. So it's not that the hypnotherapist is doing something to you. It's that the hypnotherapist, he or she is accessing a state that you've already created. Now, that could be a state of healing because, again, you know what to do to heal yourself and you know what to do to quit smoking. But you just haven't accessed that trance state. Basically, we're just switching out trance states, where you have the trance state of Kevin the smoker, you have trance state of Kevin the non-smoker, because there was a point in time when you were a non-smoker.
I quit
Even
for
if that
15
was,
years. I quit for
yeah.
15 years.
So it's not that you, and I guarantee you that's 95% of people's stories. They'll tell you, yeah, I quit for 6 months, I quit for 2 years, I quit for 20 years. So the problem isn't that you can't quit. You obviously can quit. You've done it before. You've proven to yourself that you can quit.
Yes.
So it's not that you can quit. The real issue is, why did you start again? And again, you'll see things and people say, I got divorced. It was awful. I went through bankruptcy and my business folded. I had to shut it down and lay off a bunch of people who are really good people. My mom got sick and I had to take care of her and I got really stressed. And so you'll always, not always, I shouldn't say that, but you'll often find that people have quit, again, whether it's 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years or 20 years, you'll find that well, I quit for a while, but then I started again. So can you help me quit smoking? Again, it's like the problem doesn't seem to be quitting. You can quit. The problem seems to be what is causing the issue that you started up again. And so maybe it's really about the stress. It's about the anxiety of life that is having you look for a way to feel better. You just want to feel better. And you remember, when I was 16, I was hanging out with my friends and we go to a party or we'll hang out after school. And I felt like I was a part of something, even if it's just my friends, felt like I was a part of something. And that cigarette or maybe that drink reminds me of that. and you get that hit of dopamine, that serotonin, that oxytocin, and you feel better,
But
and
even my brother, who had stage 4 lung cancer, could not quit, or did
yeah,
not quit until
did not quit.
did
Yeah.
not quit until, of course, the day he died. He quit that day. It was
Yeah.
pretty remarkable, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, what would have been an interesting question to ask, and maybe you did ask him this, do you want to quit?
The
Because
answer
if you
was
don't want
hell
to,
no. It was not
and
even
he
no,
didn't
it
quit.
was
And
hell.
this is why you can tell people, look, a hypnotist, a hypnotherapist, an entertainment hypnotist can't make you do anything you don't want to do. Because if I could, then any hypnotist could have made your brother stop smoking. Any hypnotist, smoking cessation would be 100% guaranteed. But one of my teachers, I went to a great school, Hypnotherapy Academy of America in Albuquerque, New Mexico. A great school. You actually go there and sit in a classroom, and you learn about the validity of these therapies. You learn the techniques. Maybe you see a demonstration at the front of class, and then you break up into small groups. You spend the rest of the day working. This is 2.5 months, 10 weeks, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. This is 500 hours of training. Anyway, one of the directors, Tim Zimmerman, told the story of one of his early clients wanted to quit smoking and paid him $800 for like a 5-session package. But the first session told him, "Oh, I'm not going to quit. I just want to tell my wife that I've tried everything, including hypnotherapy, and I'll just smoke in the garage." He did not want to quit smoking. He was just using it as a negotiating tool so he could smoke in the garage
I
and
don't know
not
what
the
you're talking
house
about.
anymore. And
And,
so,
and it
and
happens that way. And by the
yeah.
way, we're talking with Craig Meriwether. He's a hypnotherapist, and we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff coming
Oh,
up. I need to take a really quick break, and we'll be back in 30 seconds. Don't worry about it. So, Craig and I will be here, and we'll be right back.
They have your eyes. They have your ears. They have your smile. Now all they need is a little more of your time. Make a difference in your child's life, because anyone can be a father. It takes time to be a dad.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Have I hypnotized you yet with that hypnotic song, if you were? Because music can do that as well as anything else. We're talking.
Well, even that advertisement, if you want to get technical about it, it provided a certain emotional grab to maybe certain people. That, yeah, I can be a father, but what does it really take to be a dad? And that pulls on my heartstrings because I'm a dad. I have my son's going to be turning 24 here in a couple of months, and so that makes me think. And now I'm thinking about my dad trance state, because when I'm working, or not working, but when I'm engaging with my son, I want to be in my dad mode, and so I want to be in that trance state of being a great dad, not just a father. And so, yeah, whether it's music that makes you feel something or gets you energized, or just using some form of visualization exercises to increase your skills at something. I guarantee you, every single Olympic athlete, probably every professional athlete, is using some sort of visualization exercises, maybe even to exciting, energetic music like you were just playing, because it gets you into a different state emotionally, different state mentally. So you're going to perform better. Even that, you heard about the power poses, put your hands on your hips, do the Wonder Woman pose, do the Superman pose. Literally, you'll change the brain chemistry in your brain. And so you'll feel better about yourself. You'll feel more courageous, and you'll walk into that meeting with more energy, more confidence. And so you can put yourself in all sorts of trance states. It's just oftentimes we don't realize we're doing it.
If you want an example of that, next time on Sunday, in between your naps, and you turn on the PGA golf tournament, or watch how the golfer sets himself up before he makes a shot. He will look down the fairway. He will picture himself making the perfect shot. He'll picture himself doing everything that he needs to do to make that happen because he's visualizing success before it actually even happens. And that's been a long tried and true way of a professional golfer getting to that next level is visualizing success.
Yeah, and there's no, and people may argue with me about this, but there's no more mental game than golf in terms of athletics, maybe chess, but in terms of the athletics of a sport, there may be no more mental game than golf.
There isn't.
Because, look at what happened to Tiger Woods. And this was, probably 20 years ago now at this point. But he didn't all of a sudden forget how to swing a golf club or to putt. He was having some extraordinary problems in his family life. And he lost the mental game for a really long time. And one of the greatest golfers in the world just drove it off the cliff because of what was going on in his personal life and his emotional life, and he lost the mental game. And again, now there's injuries and getting older and things like that. But back in the day, he didn't have any injuries. He didn't all of a sudden forget how to swing a golf club, but he lost the emotional edge. He lost the mental edge, and his game went to hell. He went from the number one ranked player in the world to the 200th in like a season.
Well, now to highlight that, there was a golfer that my dad was good friends with. His name was Don Bees, and this goes back a ways. And he told my dad that the difference between him making an additional $250,000 a year was one stroke around. So one swing of the club around. So put yourself into that position where if you have a job and you make one mistake and you can lose that kind of money. That's the kind of pressure these guys are under, which is why you're right. It is a mental game. With the physical thing, they get that solved pretty quickly, but it's a mental game, and that separates the great ones from the not so great ones.
Yeah. Well, one of the greatest stories I ever heard about putting yourself in the zone, a lot of people probably remember Dennis Rodman, the great basketball player from the 90s. And if you ever saw some pregame footage of when the players are all in their sweats and maybe warming up and doing some free throw shots and things like that, you would see him sitting with a Walkman on, and little headphones, and his cassette player. This was back in the 90s. And when people would ask him, "Oh, and what are you listening to?" and he'd just say music, whatever, Public Enemy or Pearl Jam or whatever's, awesome in the 1990s. But it came out later that what he was really listening to is his own narration of the last time he played that team. And so after every game, he would sit with his back in the day, it was with a little tape recorder, and he would narrate how awesome he was in that game, how well he played against those players, how he rebounded this and shot these free throws and went from this side of the court all the way to the other side, or shot a three-pointer from here. He would narrate how awesome, even if they lost, he would narrate how awesome he was in that game, file his little tape away, and the next time he played that team, he had 3, 4, 5 cassettes that he could pull from and listen to how awesome he was against those very same players. And that's what he listened to before he started the game, how awesome he was the last time he played this exact same team. And so there's various ways of doing it, whether it's more of a meditative kind of putting yourself in state, or more visualization, or even something like Dennis Rodman, hearing a narration of how great you are. But I think what a lot of people don't remember to do, because they're not a professional athlete, that one stroke won't cost them $250,000. They forget that they are allowed to put themselves in state before they walk into work. And if 5 minutes sitting in your car or sitting at your desk before you walk into that meeting with your boss or with the board of the directors or the clients you're about to pitch your big idea to, if you took 5 minutes and just put yourself in state like an athlete before they walk up to the starting line or to home plate, if you put yourself into a state, and even if it's as maybe silly as it may seem, putting your hands on your hips, doing the power pose, which Harvard University shows literally changes your brain chemistry, gets you into a courageous state, a confident state. And then you walk into that meeting, or after a really maybe not so great day, you sit in your car, or before you walk into your home and back with family, you put yourself into a state of calm and peace and joy again. Just like many people who have listened to you may, of course, know Tony Robbins, the great personal development guy. So that documentary came out about him about, I don't know, 2018, I think. It's on Netflix, called I Am Not Your Guru. There's a plug for you for Netflix. And what it shows is him during one of those week-long events, 10,000 people in an arena. And they've all paid something like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to be there for the week. And it shows him during this week-long event, shows him backstage doing what he does with the event staff and people who are running the small groups, and his producer, and where are they going next year. And he's talking to his kids on the phone and his wife. But it also shows him right before he walks out onto stage. And right before he walks on stage, he puts himself in state. And it shows him, he spins around and punches his hands in the air, and he walks out to the exciting, energetic music, and he becomes the Tony Robbins. He puts himself into the Tony Robbins trance state, because nobody wants to see the guy who's like talking to his wife or is talking with his accountant about the tax breaks they're going to get by doing this, that, or the other thing. They want to see the Tony Robbins. And so he puts himself into the trance state, if you will, of Tony Robbins. This guy's been doing it for 40 years. He started in the early 1980s. That book of his that came to Awaken the Giant Within, that came out in the late 80s, early 1990s. He's been doing this work for 40 years, and yet he still takes 2-3 minutes before he walks out onto a stage and puts himself in state. You see him during his morning. He's doing the work. He's doing the cold plunge. He's doing the jumping on a little trampoline to awaken his adrenal glands. He's doing his meditation work, the thing that he feels he needs to do to get himself into his best state. The man's still doing the work after 40 years. The Dalai Lama still meditates every day. The man's 89 years old.
Oh, yeah.
So when you look at these masters, whether it's Yo-Yo Ma playing the cello or extraordinary athlete, you may remember, and a lot of your listeners and watchers may remember Jack LaLanne, the great
and his dog Storm.
And he would do these great feats of strength on his birthday. He would swim a lake and pull rowboats with people filled with him and all this stuff. The man was working out the day before he died at the age of 96. And so when you look at these masters, whether it's Dennis Rodman, whether it's Tony Robbins, whether it's anybody, Yo-Yo Ma playing the cello, the Dalai Lama and his spiritual growth, they're all still practicing. There's a relentlessness to this work, and putting yourself into the trance state of walking into work, being the person you need to be, putting yourself in the trance state of being like that commercial, being a dad, not just being a father and providing for the bills and all that. But what about being a dad? That requires a certain trance state to be in. And so what if you took a few minutes before you walked in the door after a hard day's at work, or a bad commute, or whatever's going on, or bad news about your elderly parents, or the call from school and your kid got in trouble? What if you put yourself in a trance state of peace and calm and being a good parent and being compassionate and being kind? Or if you're walking into work, of confidence, of courage, of energy? What if you put yourself into that trance state and just took a few minutes? Look at any master of anything. Again, whether it's athletics, whether it's music, whether it's something like Tony Robbins walking out to give a presentation in front of 10,000 people. Even though these people have been doing it for decades and decades and decades, look at the Dalai Lama. The man's been doing it for 80 years, since he was probably 5 or 6 years old. They're still practicing. They're still doing the work. And so what does that mean for me? What does that mean for you? What does that mean for your watchers and your listeners? It's like,
and we're gonna figure that part out when we come back from this break. Sometimes it's hard to get
I have it all figured out.
But
I know, right?
But what I love about it, Craig, is you are so excited about the work that you do and the passion that you have for it. Is really pretty cool to watch. I got to tell you. But we need to take a station break. We'll be right back. More with Craig Meriwether. He's a hypnotherapist. We might even touch on past life regressions if we get time. We'll see. All I'm doing is winding him up and watching him go. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
You're listening to Positive Talk Radio. We're going to take a short break to tell you audio and music creators about our commercial affiliate, Lyric Vids, specializing in creating amazing and engaging lyric videos. Are you looking to promote your videos in the most engaging way, but you don't have an animator and an editor? Whether you're an artist, musician, or business with a message to share, our lyric videos are designed to hook viewers and amplify your reach. Go to positivetalkradio.net/lyric vids. That's positivetalkradio.net/LYRICVIDS now to get started. Welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. We hope you enjoyed learning about our affiliate Lyric Vids, who specialize in creating captivating animated lyric videos. Now let's get back to the show.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, and Craig Meriwether is our guest. And by the way, that voice you heard, that angelic voice, was that of my associate, and I want to thank her for doing that commercial. And she sounds so good. So, and she looks pretty good too. So in any event, Craig, I wanted to ask you, because there are people that are going, Craig, I know I could, if I really wanted to, if I could figure out how I could meditate, and I could, before I walked into work, before I walked into a stressful situation, before I walk home and there's a strange car in the driveway and my wife is there with somebody, you get where I'm going. But a lot of people are going, I get into the throes of it and I can't figure my way out. And before I know it, something is said or done that makes me regret life for the next 48 to 72 hours. How do you get somebody to regularly practice that?
Well, that's the big trick of humanity, is how do you get people to do something that maybe they don't want to do? They don't want to take the time to do it. You could talk to your blue in your face. You talk to your brother, until you're blue in the face about quitting smoking, and he's not going to do it because he doesn't want to. Just like trying to talk somebody into going to gym. I can give you study after study after research study that shows, of course, going to the gym and working your body is going to provide extraordinarily good health. It'll also reduce your depression. Exercise works as well as medication in dealing with depression. It's just easier to take a pill than going to the gym or walking or going to the dance class or whatever you want to do. So in terms of how do you get people to do it, there's a certain relentlessness to this. If you want to master something, there's going to be practice. I can't make my son practice the piano. He's not interested in the piano. His interests lie elsewhere. Even though I'd love for him to be able to play the piano, he's not going to practice because he doesn't want to. And so in terms of people, how do you get people to want to become more compassionate, more kind?
Not even getting them to want to, but getting themselves to want to recognize the value that it has for themselves, and nobody else can give them. You can talk, you're right, till you're blue in the face about meditating, and if a guy says, "Oh, meditating is for wimps and other small creatures," but if you can get them to understand that is beneficial for them, so that's what they now want to do, that becomes a whole different conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you look at any master of anything, again, whether athletics or personal growth or business or whatever, music, they're going to do something every day to move even more into the mastery of that skill or that talent that they have. So if you want that kindness, that compassion, that peace of mind and body, yeah, there's things you can do, but yeah, how do you get people to do it? It doesn't take actually a long time. You don't have to meditate for 3-4 hours. You can reset your nervous system in just about 5 minutes. There's all sorts of simple little exercises and techniques and strategies to do to focus your mind away from what was maybe upsetting you and onto something else. Even just taking a deep breath in, and I know it's cliched and I know it's obnoxious to tell somebody who's stressed and anxious and overwhelmed to take a deep breath. That is literally what you can do to reset your nervous system. Take a deep breath into the bottom of your lungs, one of those big belly breaths. Get air into the bottom, because oftentimes we're just breathing, you're just using 1/3 of your lungs, just the top part, that little narrow part. You can get air into the bottom of your lungs. You're not only fueling and nurturing your body. 20% of the oxygen you breathe in goes directly to your brain. So now you're flooding your brain with all these nutrients, this fuel, this oxygen for rational, calm thinking. But even if you just breathe in deeply 3-4 times, gave yourself a hug, so now you're creating this bilateral stimulation. But this hug is now sending the signal up from your body up to your brain through your nerves of healing, nurturing touch. This means something to your body, whether you're kind of rubbing your hands up and down your arms or just squeezing, giving yourself a bear hug. And if you just start thinking of somebody you want to give a hug to, maybe it's a good friend in your life right now. Maybe it's a pet, a dog, a cat, maybe an animal you saw in a nature dog. Maybe you resonate with a power animal, a spirit animal. Or maybe it's somebody who's no longer with us, your grandmother, your grandfather, somebody you've never met before, Mother Teresa, John F. Kennedy. But you're hugging. Your body is feeling this hug. It's sending the signals of healing, nurturing, loving touch up to your brain. And you start thinking of that person you want to give a hug to. Now you've shut off the adrenaline and the cortisol. You're now creating oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. You're now creating the neuropeptides, molecules, literal molecules of emotion, of feeling. And instead of molecules of anger and fear and anxiety, you're now creating molecules of joy, love, and happiness. So within about 5 minutes, you can literally turn off the stress response, reset your nervous system, and literally change the chemistry within your brain. So you're creating oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine just through, it's called a 3-2-1 reset exercise developed by Dr. Richard Nongard, one of the people I've been training with for years. And 3 slow breaths, take your 2 arms, cross them, give yourself a hug. You're now sending the signal up to your brain to start creating oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, and then light up that visual part of the brain by thinking of somebody you want to give a hug to. 5 minutes and you've reset yourself. But like you said, how do you get somebody to do that? It's super simple. I hope people wrote that down. 3-2-1 reset. 3 deep breaths, hug yourself, think of a person you want to give a hug to, whether they're with us or maybe they have passed on, or an animal. Doesn't matter. Your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And just by doing that exercise, once a day for 5-6 minutes, longer if you want, you can literally reset your nervous system. So even if you're like, well, my mind's too active, I have an over imaginative daydream state whenever my mind starts to wander, so I can't meditate. Fine, you don't need to meditate like we may see in Zen meditation, something like that. If you have an overactive imagination, if you love to daydream, man, this work is great for you then. And just one simple exercise like that can really reset your day.
When I really would like people to contact you if they're having any of these problems, including just stress, or even if you can't take a test very well and you have anxiety around that, you can help them with that. How do they contact you if they want to get in if they want to work with you?
Yeah, best way, I'm in Flagstaff, Arizona, though I'd say probably 85-90% of my sessions have been over Zoom, because look how well this works. So it works really well over Zoom. So work with people around the country, even around the world on occasion. I'm in Arizona. The name of my practice is Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. If you just Google Flagstaff hypnosis, just Google that, you'll see Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. That's me. Also, you mentioned the test anxiety. If you go to aceanytest.com, aceanytest.com, you'll find out more about me and the work I do around that kind of stuff. And probably just the best way is to just go to the websites. I do the socials and things like that, but aceanytest.com, or search for Arizona Integrated Hypnotherapy and you'll find me.
And I don't know if a lot of people are going to would say this, but I know that you are in San Diego because you're helping with your elderly parents. And
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you very much for doing that. Matter of fact, this commercial I'm about to play is for you and them.
A lifetime of savings can disappear overnight. Millions of dollars are stolen every day from unsuspecting older adults by family members, caregivers, and trusted professionals. If you suspect financial exploitation, call the Elder Care Locator at 1-800-677-1116 or go online to the National Adult Protective Services Association to be connected with help in your area.
And again, welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And I wanted to play that not because you are helping your folks, and sadly, I'm learning this. Craig, I'm learning this. We're all going to get older. I know this is a shock to some, and there's going to become a point in time when you're going to fall that one time extra, and you're not going to be able to get up as well as you might otherwise, and you're going to need help. So it's important that those people around you take good care of you. And I wanted to talk to you. And will you come back first of all?
First off, absolutely, I will. Yeah.
We've got so much more. I could do a whole show, and I keep on meaning to do this because I think it will have positive impact. But NLP, I've been talking about doing a show on that for a long time, and we just never get around to it. So I'll make that commitment that I'll shut up and we'll talk about NLP for the whole hour, because I think that will help people to a great deal. Now you can Google it, NLP, neuro linguistic programming. But it's much better if someone like Craig, who knows what he's talking about, can guide you through it and stuff like that. But there's one thing I wanted to touch on before we go, and we've got about 13 minutes left, and that is, okay, there are people that will tell you that past life regression is a figment of our imagination, that it is our brain going off in some sort of a tangent that is not there. And then when they hear about people who are in a past life regression and are speaking a different language, or they can verify that the person that they are talking about actually existed where they said they were and did what they said they did, and then they go, well, I don't know, we don't know anything. But past life regression really is a thing, isn't it?
It's really fascinating, and it's not just kind of woo-woo stories you read in books or maybe on the internet nowadays, but there's actually real research behind it. And there's a little subsection of Google where you can actually look at research papers that have been published in peer-reviewed journals. It's called Google Scholar. So if you just went to regular Google and typed in Google Scholar, you'd get to scholar.google.com. And all it does is search research papers. So you could just put in hypnotherapy and you get all these research studies on hypnotherapy, but you can also put in past life regression and you get research papers on past life regression. And what's interesting is there was a paper that came out a little bit ago, and I believe it was in the Journal of Frontiers in Psychology. And it actually says that the information memory is not held within the brain, but the brain is a transmitter receiver from information from 0-point field, or the omnipresent vibrational field, or whatever you want to call it, that the force, the thing that binds the universe together. So it becomes quite fascinating because there's been a few studies that seem to show that the brain is a transducer, more specifically the pineal gland. And what's fascinating about the pineal gland, if I knew we were going to talk about this specifically, I would have brought my my little
Your
photos
chart.
and things I showed her. Yeah, my charts and things. But the pineal gland is a big part of this for making melatonin and things like that. But there are crystals in the pineal gland, and there seems to be no evolutionary need for these crystals in pineal gland. The pineal gland is about a rice size, grain of rice, about that size, has millions of these tiny, tiny little crystals in it. And again, crystals have nothing to do with producing melatonin. There's no evolutionary need for the crystals. But when pressure is applied, like a lot of crystals, they produce an electromagnetic effect, just like the crystal in your phone, the crystal that used to be in your watches, or the crystal that runs your computer. Crystal will conduct an electrical field, and the crystals in your pineal gland will do the same. And so if it's creating this electromagnetic field, some of the research seems to indicate that it produces a transducer effect. Now, back in the day when you wanted to watch Happy Days, you turned your TV set to channel 10 at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, and a TV station in Los Angeles takes this film and this audio, it puts it through a transducer, and a frequency shot up into the airwaves. And you're sitting in your home, wherever in the world, and you turn your TV set on at 8 o'clock to channel 10, and your antennas pull in that signal because they're vibrating a little bit, microscopically vibrating, to pull in that frequency into your television set, and your television set puts that signal, that frequency, through its transducer, and now you have image and sound again. That seems to be what your pineal gland is doing, according to research. It's a transducer pulling information in through the airwaves, if you will, 0-point field, the thing that binds all the universe together, the actual energetic center of an atom, 0-point field, this energy source, seems to be holding on to all the information of the world. And you pull in this information by focusing your mind on a specific issue you may want to take care of. Maybe you need to heal the anger in your life or the pain. I've worked with people with past life regression, and a few days later they email me and says, that hip pain I've been struggling with for a decade is now gone. And I was like, what hip pain? You didn't tell me about any hip pain. But in the course of the work we did together, they spent some time on their own without even informing me that they healed this hip pain from some past life regression. They literally physically healed themselves from literal pain that no doctor could diagnose or find any reason for them having it. And so it's really quite extraordinary what the human can do. There's a lot of healing that can happen in this work. There's a lot of insight and discovery that can happen. I know a lot of people will go, well, it's just people wanting to tell everybody they're Napoleon or Cleopatra. I have never, ever, in the hundreds I have done with people, never run into anybody who said they were George Washington or Cleopatra or Napoleon or anything like that. They're usually just people who have encountered hurt and pain and need it to heal. And yeah, there's this possibility that this is a metaphor the subconscious mind is creating to find healing within this life. But we had discussed before we got on the show started about the work of Michael Newton.
Yeah.
And he's an extraordinary individual that you even interviewed some time ago.
Yep.
A couple of great books I highly recommend to people, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. And it's research that Michael Newton, I know we're running up against time here, but really quickly, Michael Newton back in something like 1969, he's a psychotherapist, accidentally regressed somebody back into the soul realm, the spirit world, what he called life between lives. Seeing if he could do it again, he just started working with people and created a protocol to get people back into the state of spirit, back into the state of soul, the life between lives, before they incarnate here on earth. And as he's working with people doing this, he noticed that people kept telling the same stories about the after world or the before world or the soul world or the spirit world. They kept having similar experiences, even though they didn't know each other. They're from different backgrounds, different ages, different cultures. And so he started writing it down. He started doing research. He worked with thousands of people through the 70s and 1980s. And all his research from those 15 years or so, he put into a book called Journey of Souls, and it just talks about what people have experienced about the soul world. He then did another decade's worth of research, working with another 1,000 people or so, and produced a book that's twice as long called Destiny of Souls, kind of the volume 2. So it's really fascinating what is out there. I'm jealous you got the opportunity to speak with him. I think he passed away in 2011 or so. But the Michael Newton Institute is still out there, still doing training, still writing books, still doing research. And it's quite an extraordinary experience to go through.
I highly, highly, highly recommend Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, because what it will do for you, it will, even though you may have been brought up with a certain rigid belief structure, it will give you the opportunity to see that perhaps there's something that you've missed. There's something that is out there that you hadn't considered. And that is what he brings to it. And you're right. There is no way, in my mind, there was no way that he could have orchestrated this. And I've got proof now, because the Newton Institute has been around, and they've got several hundred people that have graduated from it and are practicing. And they will tell you that in the same breath that the same thing is happening in their practice. The people are coming in, they don't know each other, they're under hypnosis, and it will just the story will come back in the way it was done. It really is remarkable. And I'm so glad seeing we could spend. All right, so now you got to come back twice. One to talk about NLP, and the other one we're going to talk about Journey of Souls and Life Between Lives, because and people have I've said this many times on the show, and it comes from Journey of Souls. And that is, we have a contract, and we sign our contract, and we work it out before we even get here. So we know that who our parents are going to be, who our friends are going to be, and it becomes a great big stage play that we're putting together over there. And that comes directly from that work.
Yeah, it's really empowering when you come to the realization, maybe I'm not a victim. Maybe I'm here for growth. Maybe I'm here for development. Maybe I'm here to learn something. Maybe I'm here to heal. And what if you are doing this for your own growth, or to learn something that you may need in another place, up in spirit realm or something? It takes away the hurt and pain of being a victim. And it gives you the confidence to actually start moving towards healing and for greater insight and discovery. It's really quite remarkable. And I would highly recommend starting with his books, Journey of Souls, Volume 1 and Destiny of Souls, Volume 2.
And, and there's a story around that I don't have time to tell, but let it just be said that those books called to me when I went into the bookstore, and it was like, oh, you have to pick this, pick me. Yeah. And so I did. So it was great. Craig, it's great to have you here. Your websites again, please. And how can somebody get a hold of you?
Yeah. Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. If you just Google Flagstaff Hypnosis, Flagstaff, Arizona Hypnosis, you'll find me. Arizona Integrated Hypnotherapy, or aceanytest.com.
aceanytest.com. That's for a teenager that is going to be a senior and is going to do their SATs or whatever they're going to do.
It could be for the 70-year-old who wants to take his real estate license and hasn't taken a test in 50 years. Yeah. It's for anybody who needs to take a test or an exam for licensing or professional test
All right, that's the 4th show we have to do now. So
all right.
Thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Yeah, you're welcome, Kevin. I had a great time.
I did too, and thank you. I hope all of you did out there, and we'll see you next time on Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got.